Hi, you're watching COVID updates on Voice of Canada, and this is Haroon. Quebec will introduce the COVID-19 vaccine passport starting September 1st. That will apply to all people 12 and older and will be needed to get into bars, restaurants, and gyms. But there are concerns about how it will be enforced.
Quebec's health minister says a fourth wave is inevitable, but another lockdown may not be.
So that we do not have to reconfine and to avoid closing activities or businesses, the best way is vaccination. But we will also use the vaccination passport.
As of September 1st, at places like restaurants, bars, and festivals, people 12 and up will have to prove they're vaccinated to get in. It won't be mandatory for staff who work there. First, though, the province will test out the technology, which involves a QR code and a free app at a Quebec City bar and a gym in Laval. 70% of eligible Quebecers are fully vaccinated. The province wants to get that to 84% by the end of the month. Some Montrealers think a vaccine passport will help.
It will push people to take the vaccines and will be more protected.
I think it can bring more people to get vaccinated. They want to go to restaurants again, hang out with their friends again, so I think that's a good idea, yeah.
But others worry about the requirement.
It's almost a sense of discrimination too, I think, at the same time, you know, like how far is it gonna go?
Show me proof you've been vaccinated and I'm good to go.
This gym owner already requires his members to be vaccinated, but says he's faced major blowback for it.
I've been trolled to death. If you want to enjoy coming here, you do have a responsibility.
I think it's normal that some people still have questions.
There are questions, too, from civil liberties groups and opposition politicians who say the plan lacks transparency. But
there are still millions of people in Quebec who have not received their 2 doses of vaccines. Can you imagine the number of people who are potential victims of COVID?
This expert says it's one more tool that could help make the next wave smaller. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Several Ontario universities have announced that COVID-19 vaccines will be mandatory for students on campus.
Jamie Zhang is used to taking precautions so she can attend her in-person music classes at Western University. She's relieved the university is now taking action of its own.
I feel so much safer to be on campus. I know that COVID cases are so much lower in comparison to what it was before, and I think that vaccines play a huge role in that, so I think it's really great to be back on campus with that mandated.
Western is among a growing group of Ontario universities to have introduced a vaccine mandate. While some opted for a strict requirement with few exceptions, Western, like the University of Toronto, is offering an opt-out of sorts.
We ended up landing on this policy, which is a vaccination policy, which says you either get vaccinated and give proof that you're vaccinated, or we will put you into a testing program to allow you to continue to come to campus.
But some people think mandates shouldn't have any exceptions and should be adopted by more institutions.
Of the top 10 American universities, all 10 require mandatory vaccination. And so far, there's not a single university in Canada outside of Ontario that's willing to do so. It's pathetic.
For others, though, the mandates pose a moral and ethical dilemma.
You know, I understand why we're moving towards mandatory vaccines, but I'm going to speak as an ethicist. You know, it tears at the very roots of ethics in which the free and informed consent of the individual is pushed to one side. And, you know, that's very worrisome. And you know, hopefully it's temporary.
The federal government says it is working on the details of a COVID-19 vaccine passport that can be used for international travel, which it hopes will be available by the fall.
From France to Quebec,
we will also use the vaccination passport.
documents showing proof of COVID-19 vaccinations are becoming more common. And now Ottawa is providing some detail about a planned vaccine passport for international travel.
They will include the holder's COVID-19 vaccination history, including the vaccine types, date, and location.
The federal government says it is collaborating with provinces and territories to create a standard document for all Canadians, though it offered no clarity on exactly when it would be rolled out, other than early fall.
We do have a timeline, and that timeline is to move forward as quickly as possible.
Part of the challenge, there is no international consensus yet on what this kind of document could look like, though places such as Egypt have started their own initiatives. First, the citizen comes with a valid passport to make sure he and his jabs are registered in the system, whether one or two. Then a watermark is stamped, which cannot be forged.
Canadian voters had mixed reactions to news that Liberal leader Justin Trudeau's request to trigger an election was approved, particularly amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
On this beach in Toronto, election talk is heating up. Along with the topic of waves, COVID and otherwise, there's talk of safety, opportunism, and timing.
You got a good vaccinated population, so it's a good time now before the cases start to rise. You agree?
Well, it really depends. I think it's a perfect opportunity for Liberal, I think, to take over the full control. I'm not sure is that fair to other parties at this time.
Others felt that the winds are shifting. This woman agrees that the Prime Minister's reasoning that a change in direction needs an election to give the next government a clear mandate.
We need something different than what we are going on. Like, this is ridiculous what we are in now. People feel frustrated.
This woman in Winnipeg says she's too exhausted by the pandemic to think about politics.
I think that it's just very opportunistic for the Prime Minister to be calling it at this time. We're just recuperating. The country is in some major debt. People are still on CERB. People are still unemployed. And so it's just, to me, I find it to be just an ego thing. Just looking at the opportunity to get majority.
With a provincial election underway in Nova Scotia, news of another election on the horizon was taken in stride.
An election during the pandemic? No major concerns.
I feel like where we're in the Maritimes, we're kind of really privileged in that, where we haven't really started our fourth wave. It's kind of pretty calm here, so I feel comfortable. I'm not sure about the rest of the country right now.
Back in Toronto, for some, an election is the furthest thing from their minds.
I'm not aware of it at all.
I'm not at all aware of it.
A carefree day at the beach. Canadians will hear more than enough about the election in the coming weeks.
The leaders of Canada's major political parties agree on the importance of COVID-19 vaccines, but share their differing stances on requiring vaccines for federal government employees and federal workers on day 2 of the federal election campaign.
That's really important. And then,
if there were any doubt in Jagmeet Singh's mind that vaccine mandates are a controversial topic, hecklers dispelled it today.
We can set some leadership. We can ensure that all federally regulated workers and federal workers directly are vaccinated by that date, by Labor Day.
That puts Singh on the same side as the Liberals, who say one of the reasons for this election is to let voters decide that very issue.
It's important that Canadians have an opportunity to have their say, to weigh in on our plan to go forward. And we intend to ensure that the public service gets vaccinated, that anyone on a plane or a train be fully vaccinated.
Haroon O'Toole's Conservatives say forcing people to accept vaccines to keep their jobs is a step too far.
we do feel that Canadians have the right to make their own health care decisions, and we encourage people to get vaccinated, but we also have to make sure we have the tools to protect all Canadians from some people that will not be vaccinated.
The devil is always in the details, and we know that this announcement was just thrown out there with a deadline for after the elections.
The Greens are also reluctant to embrace mandates.
We know that there are those who are not able to get vaccinated for legitimate reasons. We know that there are those who are hesitant to get vaccinated.
The divisions over vaccine mandates mirror those in other countries.
These are often drawn on political positions or political lines, and so
Conservatives are typically more concerned with individual rights or proffer that they are, and are concerned with things like privacy more than they would say that the Liberals are.
Some Canadian companies have imposed their own COVID-19 vaccines requirements on employees who want to return to the workplace, while others are hoping the federal government's new mandate will be applied to them.
This accounting firm, the golden ticket for employees who want to return to the office, will be proof they're vaccinated.
We're not vaccine evangelists here. We're just a business, a medium-sized business that is trying to do the right thing.
Twitter tells us workers in its Toronto office will have to be fully vaccinated, but they can choose to stay home. The same goes at the accounting firm. Employees can continue to work remotely indefinitely and don't have to say why.
No one has approached us and said, look, I can't get the vaccine, or I would prefer not to get the vaccine, but I really want to be in the office. If they do approach us, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yes, an employer could technically mandate employees to get vaccines.
However, employers and their lawyers have to balance safety with human rights, like accommodations for workers who aren't able to get vaccinated for medical or religious reasons. Plus, this lawyer says
the requirement for the vaccine would have to be connected to a real substantial either threat of an outbreak within the workplace or the need to protect vulnerable people within the workplace.
Others don't recommend going the vaccine requirement route because it could create other challenges.
It's a question of what are they going to do about it if somebody doesn't comply. Hopefully there are sort of softer, gentler measures that will achieve the same objectives.
Some companies like Good Life Fitness want government help to make implementing a system easier before they require staff to be vaccinated.
And we want legislative protection from legal action.
For now, the pressure is on businesses to figure out how to proceed on their own.
Canadians are questioning how the federal government plans to create a vaccine passport system to how people travel overseas.
Zach Gerling says moving back to Canada from the British Virgin Islands was chaos amid COVID.
Having the tests and like hotel quarantines and the quarantine timing and all the different ways that people are going around.
It's why the 28-year-old jet setter is excited about Canada announcing a federal COVID-19 vaccine passport.
If it makes it easier to get around and move people safely and easier, I'm all for it.
But it may not be easier for Gerling. He was vaccinated with AstraZeneca, which despite being an approved COVID-19 vaccine here, may not be recognized in other countries. David Dole, who was vaccinated with a mix of Moderna and Pfizer, faces a similar problem.
There is no issue with mixing vaccines as far as the science goes so far. And I think Canada needs to clear that up.
But Ottawa hasn't offered any assurances the passport will fix this problem, or even that foreign countries will accept it.
I think this is a global effort. If it's going to be something that's supposed to be recognized by all countries.
Still, travel experts are hopeful.
The travelers all will have some peace of mind that they'll know prior to going to a country that this passport will be accepted.
Martin Firestone runs a travel insurance brokerage in Toronto and says there are also questions about domestic use of the federal document.
The ability to go to a sports attraction, a cinema, or a restaurant, and will it be used for that? That's the gray line.
Already, some provinces, including Quebec, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, are shutting down the idea of using the federal passport locally. Ontario, meantime, is asking Ottawa to pick up the pace, with no hard rollout date revealed other than early fall.
Hopefully this wouldn't be a permanent thing. It's just hopefully for...
Dr. Dana Henshaw, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, has extended Alberta's rule for 6 more weeks, backtracking on the exit plan for Monday.
Alberta was due to end mandatory isolation for positive cases of COVID-19. Testing at assessment centres for symptomatic Albertans was going to be wound down. And they're going to end the mask mandate for public transit, taxis, and ride shares. Now, these measures will now remain in place for another 6 weeks until September 27th. The province stopped notifying close contacts of positive cases 2 weeks ago. That measure will not return. Now, this comes after 2 weeks of intense protests against the government and strong opposition from doctors, teachers, and parents, among others. Premier Kenney has been the main target of that anger. He was noticeably absent from today's announcement. The NDP says Premier Kenney is hiding from the issue. Political watchers agree this definitely isn't a good look.
So if he wants to look like he's a leader, which seems to be his desire, then he should be taking responsibility for his good decisions as well as the ones that need to be modified or changed.
Keep watching COVID updates on Voice of Canada. For further updates, visit our website voiceofcanada.tv.